All right, great. Well, welcome tonight to our ongoing community conversation series. Tonight's community conversations on community services. My name is Jeff Wingard. I'm a representative from Orono Town Council. We're joined by Councillor Robertson and online by Councillor-elect Dan Demerit. We have a number of the senior staff of Town of Orono to join us tonight, including Town Manager Sophie, Megan, Lori, and Lindsay from the library, Mitch Stone, our Economic Development Director, and Leslie, Director of Community Policing. And we're excited to hear what people have to say and their thoughts on community services. Our plan tonight is to start with a short presentation to let the public know how we've structured services in Orono, and then we're going to open it up and really hopefully generate a great list of ideas from the community about how we can improve services or meet the needs of the town of Orono. So Mitch,
sure. So probably everybody's a little curious how community and economic development fits into this whole puzzle. And as I put this together, I thought to myself, I probably should say this before every one of these meetings, because all of our departments contribute to how well we attract business, how our pride of place. So part of this is just understanding how we operate internally, and it's such a team effort. And I think you're going to see how we present this as to how that comes out. First, I don't know if the Belle's going to do the slideshow.
I am. Are you ready for me to start it?
I am ready. You can go to the next slide. So I know it's going to be harder to see in here, but this statement, work internally with other town departments and externally with community members, university, local businesses, and other stakeholders to foster a community pride of place is one of the outcomes that we look for in community development. And pride of place is connected to pretty much everything that we do, but mainly to what we do here with library services, community services, parks and rec services. Mainly when we look at this, you can go to the next slide. The community events. Everyone here has an and when we're hanging here, how they come off. A lot of those derive and operate with funding that is part of economic development, because some of this is attached to attracting people to our community to visit, and also helping support business. As you can see up there, we kind of have two ways that we do community events. One is something that we put on, think of trick or treat. That's operating meetings. We put it all together. Town staff does all the things there. The second one you see out there is Stillwater Tree Lights. I think you know Tony Francis. That is his baby. We have worked with him to try to extend, help him with what he's done, and also extend it to make it bigger. And those are something that we will continue to support. Another event, which is smaller, but is the birthday celebration. And we try every year to do something. The cupcakes have been something that we've continually done. That kind of started right around the pandemic. So certainly open to growing that a little bit and doing some different things with that. Arts-a-Palooza, we support Arts-a-Palooza through staff and organizational and monetarily we support them along with Orono Pride events. And then the summer concert series, which happened on the Village Green, that's a good way to look at, like, primarily trunk or treat happens and Parks and Rec is actively involved in that much more than maybe the library is. But then summer concert series is the other way around. The library does a lot more with that than Parks and Rec may. So we share the load, and I think that's an important message to understand, is that with the resource levels that we have to really work together to do a lot of these different things. You will see that we use public works people to help us get things ready, police department to close roads down, things like that. So it's really a team effort when it comes to not only these events, but just in general how we operate. So what
what makes my life easier is that we have such a wonderful staff in both Parks and Rec and the library, and the things that they do and their ability to be creative and look at unique ways to try to provide services to the community with budgets that are small, resources that are small, and that makes my life easier because they do a great job of adding to that pride of place, and also pride of place is this: you folks giving us feedback to understand what things are important to you. Why are you here? What are the things that you want to see that make this a better place to work, live, play, and invest? So I will turn it over to, I think, Megan maybe next.
Well, you can move on. And the next slide coming up here will be the first part of highlighting some of the resources we have in town. Oh,
I'm too far.
there's one before that, Belle. There we go. So this is highlighting some of the more internal resources that maybe you don't see or think about how many hours those put in, but it highlights our Parks and Rec manager, which is myself, and Sean Owens, who's our programmer. So we are the only full-time staff in the Parks and Rec department. But we do, through a contractual relationship with UMaine, have some operational staff. And this allows us to hire summer camp counselors through them. So we are able to put on programs like that, hire lifeguards, and assist in some of our youth sports where we would need more support in areas. About next one. The other ways that some of our resources can be extended is with volunteers. People can coach sports teams. The Trails Committee is a group of volunteer folks. Our beautification committee that handles a lot of the gardens and flowers around town and around the town signs. Those folks are all volunteers, which allows us to extend some of our resources to those things. We also take in a lot of student volunteers, both through the high school and through UMaine. In various different levels. Folks can also volunteer for some of our events and in different ways that are not so committal, and you're committing to coaching a team for a certain amount of time, but it might just be an event where you can come for the day, come for the moment to volunteer with us as well. All right, next slide. I believe is going to Lori.
Yeah, so these are the library resources. We're lucky that we do have a facility, a 6,000 square foot facility that is needing to be a bit larger, and we're working on that. We're open to the public Monday through Saturday, access to all kinds of materials as well as digital content and technology in-house. We do have 3 full-time staff and a number of part-time staff, including 3 circulation clerks and 2 substitutes, which I didn't list there. We also rely heavily on volunteers. We have 10 to 12 volunteers weekly who help with interlibrary loan, things coming in, items coming in from other libraries and packing up items to go out to other libraries. And we also have 3 support groups, which total about 30 volunteers who serve on 3 different boards. It's the Library Board of Trustees, the Friends of the Orono Library, as well as the Orono Public Library Foundation.
This is an overview of a bit of what all those resources come down to financially. On the Parks and Rec side, you can see our personnel budget, which includes some of myself and all of Sean. Our operating budget includes things from trail maintenance to ordering porta potties around town to buying new soccer balls and fixing things as they come up. The 2 below are the pool budget and our budget for after school. Those are a bit separate and a lot more defined as to what those numbers kind of go into.
And as you can see with the library budget, it's very heavy on personnel. That takes up most of our budget. Other things are physical materials, books, audiobooks, DVDs, different things like that. Programming and services, we also have digital content, which is growing every year. We get more and more digital content, and that's costing quite a bit as well. And as far as actual programming, it's a fairly small budget, but that's why it's great to be able to partner with economic or community development and Parks and Rec, because we kind of share the load.
Next one. Yep. So this is a general overview of how the programs are typically structured here in town. You have a town-sponsored program, which for those who are familiar would be a program like Little Rookies that is completely run by town staff. Materials and the space we use is all town-owned space. So we have total financial control and soup to nuts, we control the entire bit. Some of our collaborative partnerships like with Humane, they provide more operational support with stuff like summer camp and some of our youth sports. The Parks and Rec department defines what needs to be done, and those pieces that are part of the collaboration come in to fill in some of the gaps where we need. A contracted program would look like our horseback riding for after school kids. That program, we contract with the stable to provide a service that we can't. I don't have any horses, but we have someone in town with an expertise that we're able to share with folks, and we do that through contract. The last way you kind of get some programs within town is a facility rental. You don't need to be a contracted partner with the town to host a program in our facility. You can do that with your own insurance and your own rental fee, and everything can be set up exactly how you would like it and just use a space that we have. There's a couple of slides that include our opportunities for all ages. This is an overview of some of the things you can do through primarily the Parks and Rec department. This includes a lot of our open spaces. It includes the pool and the ice rink. These are all things Parks and Rec manage, but are available to the public of any age.
With your library card, you also have access to a lot of different passes, planetarium, state park passes, etc. The library also has just started an art gallery in our community room, and we're on our 3rd month hosting that, so come on and stop by. And then we also have a story walk in Webster Park, which rotates seasonally when we're able to, get in the mud and change it up. But that's thanks to Kiwanis and the Masons who helped get that funding for that. And then the summer concerts, like have been mentioned, happen on our village green, and that keeps that place pretty hopping during the summertime.
Someone's a fan. So as you can see with this list, we do a lot between the 2 departments for K-5. Little Rookies, I wasn't aware of that program, but we've got toddler time. I won't read it because you can, but there's a lot going on for K-5.
Elaborate on what the Little Rookies.
Sure.
Oh, sure. Little Rookies is something we introduced just this fall. It's for kiddos ages about 3 to before kindergarten, the pre-K age. Parents are involved, and we did it this year as a sports sampler. So in the fall, it was a 6-week program. You played 2 weeks of soccer, 2 weeks of t-ball baseball, and 2 weeks of basketball. That was run completely by some oversight by myself, but on the ground, Sean took a lot of credit for making that program really take off. But it's a series we'd like to continue for more seasons. So that one was a Little Rookies sports sampler. We are looking to introduce some other Little Rookies, et cetera, type programs. Similar that you see with RAD. RAD usually, that acronym that we use usually includes some university help, RAD rock climbing, RAD after school, RAD summer camp. That usually highlights some university involvement. So we're looking to continue this program and continue expanding it. And the Little Rookies will mean for kind of younger than pre-K kiddos is what we started. So thank you.
For our middle school and high school students, we have 4-H STEM programs, and that's where we're pretty lucky to have Humane students who are in graduate programs come and pretty much put on the program. I support them with recruiting and sign up, but the students run it. And then we also have in our community room, the tweens and teens have access to that space. The challenge is when other groups are needing to use it, the teens are displaced. So they don't have that dedicated space all of the time. But that is our goal for sure. And then we also have a band book club for students grades 8 through 12 that I run.
This is a list of our adults and senior programming. Some of these, like the opera talk, the knitting group, and conversational Spanish, meet together and kind of shepherd themselves as they're an adult group. A little bit different from the Little Rookies program where you would need some heavy adult oversight. So some of these are a little bit more independent than others, but all help either funded, sponsored, or a collaboration with the town. This is a page on some of our various communication tools we use to reach out to folks. I think every department in town almost has a Facebook page where people can, for town staff to post and communicate. The Civic Rec system is something the Parks and Rec uses to communicate. We use it to sign up through programming. And once you're registered for that system, I have your email and we can put out blast emails to folks as new programs pop up. Both the library and the Parks and Rec department have individual websites, and for other departments, they have their own pages on the town website as well.
So we also have a physical calendar that we found that actual having a calendar that someone can actually look at when they walk through the library door. People are enjoying that again. So we have a very large physical calendar that we fill in. Then there's always email, telephone, of course. And then I think you both send flyers home through Ace Adams. So, and one question that's often asked, and Megan had a great meeting with seniors last week, is what's your preferred way of hearing about this information? There are so many different ways that we can put the information out there, and it's hard to know who's looking at what and what's the most effective. So with that.
So that's a very brief overview of some of the work that town staff does and some of the partnerships that the town has with other entities like the university and some of our contracted partners, things like that. But what we're really interested in through this community connection series is hearing from the community itself about either what we've done that you found useful and you've enjoyed and that we should continue to do, or what we need to do better or what we need to do more of. So we're very open. The other community connections discussions we've had, people have, raised their hand or shouted out, and we're here to listen to you. So, how we can go.
Jeff, do you want to, I don't know if Dan wants to take a moment to talk about.
Yeah, maybe that's it. Yeah, Dan, would you like to speak for a few minutes about the work that you did prior to this meeting, talking about community services?
Sure, thanks. First of all, am I up on the big screen, like the big TV, like just my head?
No.
No.
I was gonna get a little stage fright if that was the case. Is Megan Dean in the audience? I can't tell if Megan's there. Hey, Megan. Nice to meet you this way. I'm really sorry I couldn't be there in person. I'm in Augusta at the State House wrapping up some work here. Do you want to take Megan and I worked on a survey together that we shared across our channels, just a conversation starter. We had 99 people respond, just to get a sense of, where it's not a scientific survey, it's not a market, with a statistical sampling of all the different stakeholders. It was the people that we were able to reach through our channels. And we found we had 99 people respond, which was fantastic. And also it's fantastic. It was both a conversation starter and an awareness builder for this event. And it looks like between the 15 participants online and the folks and the 150 or so people in the audience, it looks like our best attended event. I know it's not 150, but it's still better than what we had last week. And I think it's a good sign that people showed up and came out tonight. But Megan, I don't know if you'd like to share some of your thoughts on it, but I thought we had great engagement and a lot of energy around people. Were clear that our Parks and Recs programming was for many people had a big makes a big difference in their life in Orono. Would you like to share something?
Well, Dan, I'd rather have you share, but I will share some of the stuff. I feel like for the So I'm Megan Dean. I feel like for the amount of time that we put it out, that we actually had a pretty high response rate, you know, I mean, I don't put questionnaires out very often, so. But I guess my drive to put something out was because I'm with a lot of the parents every day after school. And there's been a lot of us who've been kind of frustrated with the rec department. And I moved here 4 years ago and right before the pandemic, like probably a year before. And, you know, I hear people complain a lot, and I guess, you know, I'm not one to just complain. I want to like figure out how we can change things and how we can do something and how we can take people's responses and I mean, I guess try to do something with the responses to try to make things better, you know. So I asked Dan if he would help me put out a questionnaire to kind of help get a sense of what people wanted and what people wanted to see. And we had some open-ended questions. So people provided a lot of answers, some specific answers about what they'd like to see in the area. We had some broader questions regarding like, would you like to see more programming? And we had 91 people answer that. We had 99 overall for the questionnaire, but 91 for this question answered. 88% of people wanted to see more programming. What else do we have? So many. One of the questions was about helping improving Parks and Rec, and had different options on how to improve it. How would they like to see it improved? There was 25% who said they'd like an advisory committee. 55% said they would donate their time or goods or money or services. And then, so there was a lot of good responses and there was a lot of good input that we got back. So I don't know, Dan, if you want to say anything else about that.
No, I think that that fairly well catches it. I mean, there is, and I think the challenge that we'll have as a community is taking the energy and interest in programming and the interest in serving and the ideas and finding a way to kind of find some common ground about what, you know, as we go into the budget season, you know, common ground around what it is we are doing and what we can do. And then I would like to see us be able to articulate kind of a service promise or a purpose for a program that people can really understand in terms of this is what they can look to for Parks and Rec. And I mean, I think we've got some really best kept secrets about opportunities to work with our resources in Orono that if we work together, we can leverage those into opportunities for people of all ages and more, you know, more community building in bringing us, you know, prioritizing the types of events that people want to see and it can bring us together. So I'm just excited about what we've heard. I'm excited so many people are here. And I very much appreciate the leadership of the council to put these forward and the work that the people in our teams in the departments do to have these conversations. I think these are really important and really will inform decisions moving forward.
Megan, I'll say that we were shared the survey results today, and they're super interesting. I just started to read through them. I think that's going to really inform our conversation as Dan said, as we go into budget season, we look to determine what the appropriate service levels are. So it's really going to help us to have as many specific suggestions as possible.
You know, I think one thing, what I've heard is that I think a lot of people like being asked.
Yeah.
And they're being asked by Dan and I, but I think they like to be asked by the town. What do you want to see? I know Herman puts out regular questionnaires to the folks in Herman and what services we like to see, what programming. And I think taking that into account and people feel like they're being heard. And when I brought up some suggestions, instead of being told no, I think we'd like to hear how can we make this work, you know, instead of just no, you know. I've actually spoken to a lot of rec departments. And I actually went around and I collected like how much they were budget, how much they spent in their budget, all their programming, their mill rate, their town size, and I have it all at my house. I couldn't figure out how to put it in a spreadsheet yet because I work and I have 3 young boys. But I was just interested because I thought I don't really know how much we spent. And then once I found out how much we spent, then I could start comparing to all these other towns because it seems like so many other towns have so much more programming. So I thought, well, maybe they have more staffing, or maybe they have more of this, or maybe they have a bigger budget, or maybe they have more resources. And interestingly enough, I found that, I don't want to be like a Debbie Downer, but I found that our budget is probably the highest. We have more people working, more resources. And some of these other rec departments, they have maybe one rec director working another full-time job, and they provide way more services. And it's just very frustrating. And you know, I've offered to help get programs going, and I would help do them. And so now I'm going out and I'm kind of starting my own rec program. I'm doing it on my own because.
Well, you know, I had a similar experience. I was a rec program contractor, like ran a contract program for the town for several years and had a ball doing it.
We miss it.
Yeah, well, at some point maybe it'll do, but you know, it takes time, right? If you have a job and you have a family, it's one more thing. So really what we need to hear is how can we leverage our staff time most efficiently to deliver the kinds of programs that are going to be the biggest bang for the buck, you know?
I just wonder what kind of programming, other than what Megan is doing now, what kind of programming were people looking for?
So many more. I mean, just like as many sports as possible. I mean, I'm a mom of 4 kids, and my kids don't do all the AAU stuff, and they don't do a lot of travel stuff, and they don't do a lot of club stuff. I just want them to be exercising, and it would be great if they could exercise after school. And I mean, anything from tennis to they're doing net right now, and there are certainly things that we try and take advantage of. But just maybe more of a selection. Megan organized a ski bus this year. So my kids were able to ski and snowboard for the first time. You know, and they had some independence with that, but that was just Asa Adams because Megan can't do everything.
Because I brought 50 kids on a bus.
But you know, to do middle school, to do high school would be great, things like that, winter sports. I mean, even cross country, that's not run through.
Yeah, we have a great Nordic program
Yeah.
that's put on by parents and volunteers.
Yeah, I mean, and so it's not, you don't just go to rec sports to do your sports throughout the year. You have to go to other places. We go to Orono and VZ for softball and t-ball, and we go to Penobscot Valley. We go to Megan, and then we do things through here too. I mean, the track that's
a separate.
That's also separate.
Little League separate. Too.
Yeah, Little League, VZ Orono.
Were there requests for non-sports programs?
I'm just talking about sports. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, that'd be great
Chess.
too. Yeah, chess. We need my son's chess. I mean, arts and crafts, all that. But I mean, I feel like a lot of parents focus on sports because all of our kids need to be tired when they go home. And I mean, when I think of a rec, I think of sports. I think of them doing something, you know, kids, they're in school, and then they don't get as much physical education as we did. They don't have gym, you know, we're lucky we get what we get, but we want them tired. I want them.
But just opportunities so they can find what they like and try different things. You used to do karate, I remember.
I know.
And that was amazing. And we
that.
used to use that building, Keith
Exactly,
Anderson
Keith
more,
Anderson.
or even like dance, have like a dance program, or I don't know.
Mary
just
Ju.
More, there used to be a dance.
Yeah.
I hear people say there used to be this, there used to be that. And I'm trying to bring those things back.
And like Keith Anderson, is the Keith Anderson house going to be?
It is open. It's
I
available.
know. I went to a program last week and they canceled it and I didn't know.
But you know, I talked to Tina Burns and she was very frustrated. She said she's been trying to get something going there and for like dance or like a community singing group, and that basically there's all these roadblocks. And I just feel like there's a lot of roadblocks to do anything. And you know, the pop-up clinics that we've only done, there's been like 2 or 3. We're doing them. My kids aren't necessarily interested, but they're doing them just to see their friends. But like the Nets sports one, it's a good way, I think, to see, okay, if people are interested in this, then maybe we should do a 4 to 6 week program. However, there was the Nets program pop-up night and there was 2 kids who showed up, you know, but there's gonna be a 6 week or 4 week program, but only 2 kids showed up to the pop-up. But I think they're all going, like my kids, they're going just to see their friends, not necessarily because they want the Nets thing, but you know, they're just,
Yeah.
but maybe like having a more of a sometimes the pop-up things are like a day before, so we don't, you know, we already committed to the YMCA or to something else. So Heather, you had a good point too.
I have to go get my kids from
Yeah.
the first.
You brought up about just having things.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to kind of piggyback off of that, and I do first want to acknowledge that I know that a lot of this work is very thankless, and I really do appreciate all of you coming here today and having spent a lot of time trying to mobilize volunteers the past 2 years through PTO. I know it's not easy, so I just want to acknowledge and thank you all for that. I think sort of, again, sort of to speak to some of that, as well as just sort of having more sort of smaller opportunities that maybe don't necessarily cost as much money. Like the partnerships with the university are great, but they can be really cost prohibitive and they're not right in town. And so seeing more sort of, you know, if there's a way to sort of mobilize staff and volunteers that could congregate at the school after school, or, you know, just kind of that like being in place, you know, like a lot of us, Diane included, like spent a lot of time at the school, you know, after school playing on the playground and making those connections. And I think that there's a lot of opportunity to provide more programming that's maybe not necessarily sports related, but just kind of in town. For example, and again, my kids do rock climbing and I'm super grateful for that. Really appreciate the diversity of horseback riding as well. But they're expensive programs and they're for 12 to 15 kids and they're for kids that have resources. It's $80. So maybe kind of like a little bit of like, let's not put all our eggs in one basket and try to sort of connect. And I know that those conversations are starting to happen more, but you know, getting a Lego club going or, you know, just things around town that don't necessarily have to cost a ton of money. It just, you know, gets kids connecting.
I just wanted to mention that in the past anyway, the Orono Health Association has always provided, or at least until recently, has provided funding for scholarships for rec programs. I mean, that was the intent, but we have a policy that we do ask people if they need the money. And at one point we were told that the money wasn't needed. And so I just want to say that, you know, we would be willing to support. I mean, I hear you saying, you know, my kids would be a part of this program if there was maybe a way to apply for a scholarship. And I think, I can't speak for the entire board, but I think if we were, you know, if we were brought some kind of, you know, idea of scholarships, I think we would support that.
I guess I'm not necessarily just saying that it's not that we can't pay for it, you know.
Well, some probably can't, but it is expensive. I'm not gonna ask
for one day of the week and, you know, it's not, and I don't think that that's quite out there as much.
I mean, I got 3 kids, so they're all saying, well, if he's doing it, I want to do it. So,
right.
You know, and $80 or whatever it is, I mean, it's a lot for 3 kids, you know?
And it fills up quickly.
It does,
and
there's only like so many kids, like 10 or so.
Right.
And then like with horseback riding, I think it's like 3 or 4 kids they take because they need a small group. So it's not, you're not getting a large group of people to be able to go do these things.
Mitch, do you want to speak about scholarships?
Yep, so we have a scholarship fund and it is, well, the reason we told you we didn't need it more is because it rolls over every year and we have plenty of money in it. We don't see a lot of people use it. We do advertise it on kind of everything that we have, but because typically most of the stuff we have is not expensive. Yes, there are some that are more expensive and we would entertain anybody that has a scholarship. They just need to call us or email and we can give them the information and process that. So it's there and we have plenty of money in it. So
do kids have to provide their own transportation to some of these programs? Is that
just on the way back?
With the rock climbing and horseback riding specifically, transportation is included in those programs. So it does affect the cost slightly versus a soccer program that doesn't involve.
Except for on the way back.
There is it doesn't
So it
bring
could
you
get
back
you
to the
there, but it
school.
doesn't.
It picks up from,
Somebody would have to
and
pick
then
you up at
you get
5:30.
picked up by a guardian or parent to go.
thank you.
Can I just go back, because I don't want to miss
some of the points that were made here. I'm curious, when the town decided years ago to work with Orono VZ Little League to take on the T-ball since they had the expertise to do it. And the town provides an annual contribution to Orono VZ Little League, provides the space where Orono VZ Little League is and maintains that space. We see it as a collaboration that brings a group of dedicated parents who want this work to happen to provide a service for our community. It's much like the arrangement we have with the ski club. I'm curious because the way you were describing it, it sounds like you don't believe that that's a good way to put a program on. And so I'm kind of curious what you would see happening differently if the town took responsibility for it. And
Well, in the past
Over
years, I was told by people who work in the league that they didn't get much support. Now, Nick recently has said that he's worked closely with the rec department, but in the past, they have said they haven't got much support. But
I'm not
just talking about Orono
Yeah,
Little League.
so my question is not, I want to hear what people want for programming, right? Because what we have been doing is throwing things at the wall to see what sticks. And quite honestly, it takes way too much energy to do that. And so we're trying to reach out and find what people want. I'm just looking at one of the ways we've done that is through collaboration. And does that,
I
is
think
it
that
more
works.
about the program being here? Do you know what I mean? Does that work okay?
I think that works great. I think as long as we have program. I'm just saying there's been a lot more programming in other towns with less resources and less people.
Sorry, I just had a question, when you were, talking about the financial aspect of it, then there was talk about scholarships that aren't being used, or I think in part what you were saying is that not everything had to be something that was overly expensive in the terms of like the type of, it's great to provide things like horseback riding or rock climbing. I think there's definitely an interest in that, but there's lots of things too that may come at a much cheaper cost that kids would just be as happy to do. But then you were talking about the financial piece. I moved to Orono about a year, I guess I'm going on 2 years now. I have 3 kids, one in elementary, one in middle, and one in high school. And we came from Bangor, where they have a really big rec department. They also have their Y, which is really involved in the community and providing resources. And to get into my personal part of my life, I guess I was a single mom for 5 years, and I was always in that group that sort of made too much to qualify, but not enough to pay for these types of programs. So I'm wondering what sort of process it is for people. I mean, I'm fine now to be able to do things, but I think I'm still mindful of the fact that, there's a budget and a cost. And I'm also mindful of the people like myself who in years past couldn't necessarily afford the full cost of something. So like, for instance, the Y, I was able to get my kid through like preschool program there because they did like an offset. Like I didn't qualify for a full scholarship, but there was some sort of partial scholarship that allowed me to proceed. So I'm just wondering what sort of, formula there is or what that process looks like for the town. And if parents know that that's an option, like maybe according to your tax record, you don't necessarily, it doesn't look like you qualify or you're on that cusp, but that there is this obviously bank of money that can help out for the people that don't fit into your math equation. I guess that's.
Right. I would like to say we have a complex math equation. We don't really. In all honesty, when people apply, we take it on a case-by-case basis and work with people. If people are applying, we're pretty much assuming they're challenged in some way. So we look through that and try to figure out what works best and what we can do. We try to spread, we say we have money, we don't have an infinite pot of money. So we try to spread that out so that it's not like you apply for scholarship and you can do every single program in the fall. We try to work with people on that. But at the end of the day, we encourage people to contact us and we work with people Because clearly, if you're contacting us because you need help, we want to help.
Sure.
There's even a section for you to write out your specific scenario to let us know. So maybe, right, your numbers add up, if you will, but there's a spot for you to still communicate that through us as to why you might need support through this time. And we've gone through those as well to support folks.
Great. And then I will say too, I'm sort of newish to the town, but my youngest takes advantage of a lot of the rec programs. So I'm super appreciative of that. I mean, he's doing Brad after school camp, which is amazing because I work for the court and I can't always, sometimes I'm in court. So I can't deal with the come get your kid at 3:30 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So it's been super helpful to have him have that option. It runs him ragged. But I know sometimes he feels frustrated. Like we were having a discussion, just yesterday about summer rec. And so he was like, I don't want to do it because he feels kind of sort of stagnant with the program. Although I know that there were days that they would do like a field trip or something to that effect. And so I tried to explain, well, there's not a lot of summer programs out there, right? So this made very well, and it was affordable in comparison to something that, for instance, the Y offered. But so I don't want to seem ungrateful either about the resources and programs because we have used everything that we could, including Megan, God love her, for reaching out and telling me about things like, the Little League program or the ski program or, some of the other things that maybe are not offered through directly the rec program. So, but I also have a middle schooler, who there's not a lot of resources or programming for middle schoolers. And maybe that's because there's a lot of middle schoolers that would rather stay home and play video games and not do things. But as a parent, I would like to be able to offer those things. And sometimes there's, after school activities that come up. But again, it's like you've got to pick your kid up by 4 o'clock in the afternoon, which is not really conducive to the people who have day jobs. Sometimes I can make it work. And then sometimes I'm like, sorry, I can't. But he has a teacher who offers like a cooking class. We contribute towards a cooking class, but it's awesome. And he loves it and he comes home happy. And it's something else that he's done that allows him to interact and meet other kids. It teaches them some life skills. So perhaps doing some sort of survey type thing to reach out to find out what programs people might be looking for that's not already being offered. Or again, if there's a need, maybe there's not any interest in something for middle schoolers, but I feel like we're not maybe offering enough for that specific age group either.
I think I read in some of the survey results that there was some interest in exploring more middle school level programs. I know the library has done a lot with that in the past and continues, to program for middle schools, but sometimes that can be hit or miss. You can have 12 one day and
Right,
2 the
exactly.
next,
Yeah, right.
I'd like to maybe ask you a follow-up question. And you said your son felt the RAD program was a little stagnant. And if you could share, like, what can we communicate to the partners that we do RAD with that would make that
Sure.
a more fun program?
So, and I can say that too, based a little bit on observation. So, I drop him off in the morning and he absolutely adores basketball. It's like his favorite thing ever. But you drop their kids off in the morning and they're going into the gym area of the New Balance Center. And so they just hang out and play basketball forever. And that's where you pick them up. They're doing that. And so I don't really know, aside from there's an allotted swim time. And then there's also, again, like once a week was a field trip thing, which he enjoyed doing. And I think there was also some outside play, which sometimes was required because of COVID stuff. But I'm not sure, I didn't get the sense that there was a lot of other things happening throughout the day there. And I could be wrong. He's 7, so maybe he's not telling me all the high points of his day. But I just, based on, again, my observation, it seemed like kids kind of sitting in groups. You had kids that would play some of the sports, whether it was ping pong ball or basketball, but everybody's kind of in the same area. And so he would say things like yesterday when he was like, please don't send me there. It's the same kids. And so maybe you've got all the kids in one area and there's not like a segregation maybe by interest or by activity, for instance. So I think it's probably hard for them to manage too. if you've got however many kids in that program, all confined to one space, how do you keep them happy and active and occupied? But I think they're also getting frustrated with each other too. So that was something that I picked up on. At the end of the day, I would take him and he would be like, I don't want to go there again. And I would pick him up and he'd be like, it was a good day. So again, I think he ultimately, he had points that he really liked about it. And then there's things that he just was like, I would rather stay home this summer, which is not an option.
That's great feedback, Chris.
One thing I would just add to that.
Yeah.
The way that that is structured is that there is a programming time, and I correct me if I'm wrong, it's like
Right,
8 to 4:30.
The
Yeah, I
time that
think
you're
7:30 to like 5, I think
Well,
was.
so you can be there 7:30 to 5. A lot of programs will do early drop off, late pickup. The way that it's structured is you can bring them anytime. Programming starts at 8 o'clock.
8:30,
8:30.
it's usually,
And then
7 to
goes to
8:30.
4:30-ish.
yes, so that allows folks that are able to get their kiddo at 4:30 to come, and folks that need it a little bit later to use that time without an extra charge or worrying about staff not being there or anything like that.
Which
But
again,
So it's
and the
less
full
structured.
advantage,
Yeah,
I
Well,
appreciate it.
All I'm
Because of that.
suggesting, it's less
Yeah.
structured during those times, which is
Absolutely,
good
yeah.
feedback, because maybe
Sure.
it could be more structured,
Right.
but that's kind of how they had set it up, so that we weren't charging extra for beginning and end. It was just part of it, but.
Do
the
we know
program-
more about what gets offered, like what a day in camp looks like?
For summer camp, yes, you're right, they do swim every day. Each week is themed, so those activities do change a little bit with the theme. Some activities are planned by our camp director, some are planned by our counselors that they have specific interest in, so it's fun for everybody involved. But there's the potential, if you're going every single week, swimming every single day, every single week, swimming might feel repetitive. With our RAD after school program, at the end of the day or after snack time, towards the end of their day, they usually break up and do activities. But if you don't like the activity, you're more than welcome to play in the gym or play in a different set. But if a lot of kids do choose that activity and you don't necessarily want to participate in, you're playing in the gym with 2 or 3 kids, because the after school program is a little bit limited in the numbers we can
I will
have
say,
there.
again, he does after school program, and I found that to be really great, because what you're describing is accurate. There's like little arts and crafts time, and sometimes he participates in that, and sometimes I find him a sweaty hot mess in the gym, because they've built forts with mats and they've played basketball or sharks and minnows or whatever. So that works, and maybe it's because it's a smaller period of time. We're talking just a few hours versus all day.
I'm hoping that one of the things that will happen though is it's the same kind of group of people. We contract a little differently for the 2 programs, but it's generally the same people doing it. So we're hoping to take the lessons that we learned from after school that are hits and kind of parlay them into summer camp.
Yep.
The feedback though that we get is important, because when people come and pick up their kid and say, oh, yeah, it's great, and leave, we'd much rather hear, we're getting kind of tired of sharks and minnows.
No, he
or-
loves the sharks and minnows. He doesn't like it when kids break the rules.
Yeah.
So.
I will let Brooke and Morgan know. But Brooke and Morgan are our assistant camp directors for that program. Sometimes I'm usually there at the beginning of the program when the kids get out of school. I can't always be there towards the end due to different programming and being in the office and things here. But giving that feedback to Brooke or Morgan on the day you're picking up is definitely those people are someone you can talk to, because they report directly back to Dale and myself. So giving them, any of the counselors can do that, but specifically Brooke and Morgan can definitely get information like that back to us. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sure this is probably happening, but do the kids have an opportunity to be asked what kinds of programs they might want to do? Maybe they've got some ideas that are, there's one. Are there programs that aren't being offered that the kids might mention? I listen to you, my kids are way grown, okay? Way grown, but they would have been absolutely exhausted by most of this and would have wanted to sit in a corner with a book. And, you know, would not have wanted to be constantly programmed.
Which I
But,
will
you
say
know-
that we do, not to interrupt, sorry.
Yeah, that's okay.
After school, Lindsay goes once a week to do a story time.
Yeah,
And during the summer, I think once a week they come to the library and there's a collection of books that is taken to them or picked up by Dale. Lindsay knows more. I should stop talking because she knows more than I do.
Yeah, we do it by theme. So I know the themes ahead of time and I pick some books that relate to that theme. So there's books always available and they come and they invade the library for an hour and it's loud and chaotic and beautiful and.
right, but, you know, maybe they would choose to learn something about role-playing games or video games. Maybe there's, you know, maybe there's something they want to know about that, you know, but I think, you know, parents are wanting the kids to be involved, but, you know, what are the kids saying that they
That's a
would
good
like
point.
to be involved
Great,
in?
yeah.
They may have some ideas that,
We wouldn't
And
think
it-
of.
yeah, you wouldn't pick up, and that maybe if they could do it anonymously, they would come up with some ideas that nobody's ever heard of. You know.
I think that's a really good idea.
well,
I think you guys just gave Ed Lesky a job.
You know, I mean, I've worked with teenagers for 23 years and you gotta let them talk. They have ideas. Sometimes you don't like them.
I know, but you asked earlier too, some of the programs that weren't being offered that they would like. I'm thinking of it now, but I know a lot of people have mentioned swimming. There used to be a bus that took kids to swimming at, I think at the university. I don't know if it was the Wallace Pool or at the rec center.
We cannot wait to bring swimming lessons back. We're still struggling a little bit with that staff issue we've had since the summer after COVID, that we have started to recover a lot of our swim staff in both university and
At the pool, I guess there used to be some, it was before I moved here, but
Yeah,
people said that was
University
wonderful.
swim team did it.
that currently is a staff, a more staff-driven problem than a desire or programming piece. It is currently, we're working through right now, looking at staff for the summer and how to build that with council's input as to what the pool will look like for the coming summer.
And I would love, if you want to take over the ski program, I would love that. I
So
would help out too.
I do want to say, we had planned to contact you after this was over.
Oh.
And You
That's right,
have
it was
unfortunately
currently
had bad
happening.
weather, not necessarily for skiing, but to get to
Yes.
skiing.
Yeah,
So we are certainly open to having a conversation about what that could look like. And certainly amazed at the program that you put together, the time frame that you did that, and certainly want to be a partner in that and how that may look. Because we were contacted by another parent that said that you might be interested in that. We were going to contact you when it was over.
Well,
and to see.
I just heard a lot of people say, wow, we'd like to do this, Glenburn does this, all these other places do that. And I said, well, we used to do it. So I was like, well, maybe I can get it going. So I got, I think 52 people within like a week and a half. And they gave me the money and they paid Herman the money for, I got the money for the bus. They paid Herman. It's just like really amazing that everybody got the money in on time. But I said, I can't pay your share for the bus. So, and really, there was kids, actually Diane, who was sitting here, her kids aren't really into a lot of sports, but they ski for the first time, had a ton of confidence. And I've heard a lot of people say that. And it was so nice to see these kids come down over the hill. And again, this is one of those programs that are more expensive. But the good thing about it was I didn't have to teach the lessons. I just brought them there.
But on that note, you know, my kid is 7 and like he's never skied. We're not a big skier family. And you reached out, he wanted to do it because his friends, and again, he's like, there's not a sport he doesn't want to do. But and he got through the lessons and he enjoyed it. He was a little bit nervous. He really enjoyed snack shack time. But over, you know, the cost of the program to include like the rental of the equipment and everything over the course of the time, I think is reasonable in comparison to if you were paying every week to go skiing.
It's actually cheaper, like I think $80 cheaper than if you were to sign up on your own for 4 weeks. And the bus was $22 per kid to be brought there, and then the parents picked up after. So
We are certainly open to discuss that. That was our plan. We were trying to allow you to get through it so that
see how.
you knew the extent of what you wanted to do.
And there's actually been a ton of volunteers who've helped, which has been amazing. Because again, like that's what we need for all of these programs is volunteers.
Well, on the subject of volunteers, and maybe this was asked in the questionnaire that came out, I can't remember. I'm new to the town, but I love the small town and the fact that people are working together and trying to collaborate and do things. I may not always be able to volunteer for something, but I'd love to know when there's a need for help for that. So is there like an email chain or something that you can sign up for, or how does the town go about soliciting volunteers for upcoming events or things of that nature?
That is something that I think we're looking to bring back in different waves. Some of these volunteering kind of more pop-up things had faded with COVID, and now that we're in a better place, we're doing that. When you sign up for sports programming, if you're looking to be a coach or help with coaching in any aspect, there's a question when you sign up, kiddos, for that. The Trails Committee had done Trails Days in the past where people could come out and help groom or take care of trails. That would be done digitally through the Civic Rec system, as well as being posted on the town site and things once if the Trails Committee went in that direction to do things like that. When we did Trunk or Treat, we did have both businesses and families, folks that maybe couldn't host trick-or-treaters at their own homes because they lived a little bit more rurally. There were some folks at Trunk or Treat who chose to be part of that. And that went out digitally. I believe that was also Trunk or Treat was advertised in Flyers Home as well. Lori, I don't know if you would like to speak on the volunteer
volunteers.
piece as well. I know you have.
Yeah, so
through you.
we don't really use a lot of volunteers for programming per se. We have them in the library for daily operations as well as our boards, and we seem to get them without asking.
Well, as somebody who sometimes gets bombarded with all of this stuff, again, I'm just wondering if maybe there's a more concise way of reaching out to people, whether it's a set list, an email blast that, okay, this is it, because I don't always, my kids don't always bring home the paper that they got from school, and so then I find out about something, 2 days before it happened or the day it's gonna happen, so.
I wonder if, so we have like a listserv where people can sign up and click what they're interested in. Perhaps if we looked at expanding that a little bit. I also know, not to critique my own service, but I'm going to for a minute. I also know that stuff that comes out from Civic Rec can look spammy.
Yeah.
And that's a really good point, and one that I hope Ed or Mitch are writing down, to look at how we might be able to expand through our town listserv options to be able to do that. It's a good idea.
Can I add to that too? When I did an after school program here many years ago.
Which was great.
Tracy's daughter was part of that. Volunteers, if you're, and I don't know how, I'm just going to assume that if you're going through a municipality, you're going through like a program, you have to do background checks if you're working with children, maybe not as much at the library. But if you're working with children, everybody's going to go through.
Which is great.
Check. Yeah, exactly.
That is correct.
And it's part of, so, I'm sure our parents would be fine. I'm sure that wouldn't be a problem. But if you're working with the state, or if you're working with, this kind of stuff, there's a tight, close watch on who is working with your children, and making sure that the kids are safe. So, that would have to be something that people would want to participate in.
Are you talking about this?
No, I'm just talking about through a municipal rec program, volunteers would still have to go through a background check to make sure that they were safe.
Yes, we did not do that for the ski program.
Right. Right.
It's kind of like whoever showed up and.
Yeah, but I think it's
Yeah.
primarily working with children,
Yeah, yeah.
right? When you're working with children.
I think that's one of the reasons why we try to offer several different ways to link, because there are times that the town not doing it and supporting it in a different way allows you to stretch your dollars a little bit more, have a little bit more flexibility.
And I think that's an important piece, is that what we try to do, and I hope this is what we are doing when people call, is sometimes we ask a lot of questions to try to figure out what is the best way to place it so it can happen the way people ask us to have it happen. I think that's part of the challenge. As a municipality, there are lots of things that we have to follow, rules we have to follow, ways we have to do things. And sometimes it is easier for a group of parents to get together and do something than it is for us to run it and at a cheaper cost or whatever. A perfect example is renting the Keith Anderson. You have to have insurance. That is something that our insurance carrier has told us. There's no way around it. And that is frustrating for people. But that is something that we can't go around. And so that's a hard, I know we know that's a block, right? So we try to figure out, is there a way that if somebody wanted to run a program, could we work together so that it can be under the town as a town program, so that insurance piece, and then usually that comes into whether it's a contracted program or how that is. But it's all about, for us, for the insurance companies, who controls it. I mean, and that's how we have to work through it. So it becomes a little complex, and that's hard, right? I mean, we just want to go play basketball. We don't need this. Well, that's some of the challenges that we have. And I think the other thing that I don't know that it was really brought up. One of the other challenges we have is that other than the Keith Anderson space, we don't own or control any other spaces except for the field that's out here, the field that's over there in Martin Park. So when we talk about programming, we have to go through the school. We have to fill out an application and reserve time. And if it's available and we're the next one in line to get that, we get it. And it's really difficult because we can't do that 2 days before. We have to do that months in advance to be able to plan to try to figure that out. We also know that the ones that are available, like Asa Adams, aren't really big and aren't really great for a lot of different things. And so we're trying to find different ways to be more creative with that, but that is a true challenge for us.
That's what I was gonna mention, was like, it would be so great if we could have a rec building. Just, yes.
Somebody said to the library.
Let's just add to the library.
I will say something. I did a travel basketball program this last winter, and I kind of had to deal with some of the frustrations of dealing with talking to this person and that person, trying to find a gym and all that. Eventually, after going through multiple people, getting different answers from everybody, I was able to get the middle school. They had me look at the schedule, and although it was difficult, I had to kind of keep looking to see where I could fill in practices. It was doable, and it is a space I think they probably, as long as it's Orono kids.
Right. So one of the pieces to that, we are aware that there is time in the gym,
Yeah.
but it is, as you said, Tuesday this week, Thursday next week.
Right.
And for us to run a program and advertise it, we've heard loud and clear, that's really difficult for people that are trying to do multiple things.
Right.
I can't figure out when that is or have that change because it mixes and matches. So that's where we've challenged with that.
Yeah.
But we do know, and the times that we pick it up, like they don't actually know that those are available until January, like after they've kind of settled in, and we've already had to advertise the program and get it out there. And so I don't disagree with you. There is space if we can fit it in, and it's worked for smaller groups that have a tight knit, and we can say, okay, people are willing to do that. But as far as running a total program, that has been a real challenge. They have been great. The weekend Saturdays, we could have the gym all day Saturday because middle school doesn't use it there. Asa Adams has been good evenings. There are certain times, but usually it works out, and that's a place that we've been able to get. High school gym, forget it. Yeah, I mean, can't even walk by that. It's so busy. But ultimately, they created a space to use for the school. So, I mean, yes, we'd like to use it, but that they're gonna use it first. And there's so much spillover, not just middle school programming, but from the high school down, because there's no room anywhere else, so. But
Can we check online, Jeff? I know, I thought I saw Jen's hand up a while ago and then I saw her applauding, but does anyone online have anything that they wanted to add?
This is Jen. My answer or my question was kind of answered. I was hoping that REC would put out like one pager that says, if you want to subcontract or you want to offer programming and you want to volunteer and make this commitment, then you need X, Y, and Z. I know Jeff's an expert at that. He did it for years. Mary Drew did it. And I will just say that as far as scholarships, I just want to make the comment that anybody I've met that has provided programming for Orono Rec, and we've been here 25 years, and we have 4 kids that went through the program. We've seen it before, we see it now. They've never turned a student away that needed, you know, a scholarship. And, you know, the folks that volunteer are such lovely, open people that it typically wouldn't even go to needing a scholarship. They would just say, you know what, this is a safe space and I'm glad you're here. And none of the other students would know, and it would be just a lovely program for that child. So that's my comment.
Thanks. I think that idea of a subcontracting guide or a user manual for public spaces is really, it's needed. We don't have one. It's been sort of ad hoc. Something.
I don't mean to change the subject, but I'm wondering, Megan, what the feedback was about your adult programming. And when you had your meeting last week, I was working upstairs, so I couldn't come down, but I wonder what the feedback was from that meeting.
Yep, so what Debbie's referring to is last week, March 8th, I believe. I had hosted along with Ed, and Lori was able to join us as well, to get some feedback from our older adults and adult population as to programming they might like to see. The rec department itself doesn't currently provide a whole lot of options for that population. So as we were in budget season and we're starting to get feedback, we had created an open invite for that meeting. Overall, I think if I were to sum it up briefly, it was a wonderful conversation. The population as a whole, I think, are looking for some transportation pieces and some time to get together. If we are looking to do programming, it would be with signups and very structured because they want to be in spaces where they can be together and do things together. The other piece I think that was pretty clear was the mode of communication has to be clear and maybe preferably letters sent to folks' homes so they have something more tangible. Lori, did you?
Yeah, so there were some individual ideas like a bocce field, you know, our court, what do you call it?
Yeah.
Mahjong,
Yeah,
which is what we're something I'm
yeah.
looking into at the library to have a Mahjong group. But the bus trips seem to be one of the main things they talked about, either getting to the grocery store or going out to lunch with a group of people or going to a theater together. So I think that's something that, you know, Megan is really taking seriously and looking into. Yeah.
I was on the webpage, the town webpage today before I came, and I just typed in senior opportunities. And it brings up the Parker Building, the senior center, like it's a big deal. Can we maybe have it open at some point in time with a staff person and a pot of coffee? They could gather there.
That was one of the ideas, was having a
gather
game
there,
day or
cousins
something, or a
together,
time to
play
have games.
cards, maybe around one of the meals.
They used to have lunch there.
They used to have lunch there. Those lunches were put on by the Housing Foundation. They're going through some changes in staff, but we have continued to have conversations with the folks still there. And they would be looking to bring back, at the moment, something akin to that, but they can't quite bring it back exactly how it was right this moment. But the idea has not left the table, and we would continue to work with them and support them in that space where they would need.
So I think these are great ideas. I think the other, just historically, 5-6 years ago, we had a number of senior groups in town that were all kind of competing and doing different things, and there was a lot going on. That and COVID hit, and a lot of those dissolved, and that's one of the reasons why we're looking at that. The Housing Foundation has put on the meals there to go right now, but they have talked to us about wanting to bring them back. They had a staff person that was working in that person left, and they're trying to fill that position. So I think that's why, one of the reasons why we have engaged in that is because the things that were there before aren't there anymore. So how do we re-engage that? So.
And I think, at least from the point of view of the thrift shop and maybe even the library, one of the problems on Wednesday is that there's no parking. And I will say that sometimes some of the elderly folks probably shouldn't be parking. They shouldn't be, trying to back into one of those parking places. But if maybe transportation could be provided once lunch is happening again, to pick them up and bring them and then take them home again. I mean, that's not a lot to, I know buses are expensive, but it would cut down on the parking, and it would mean that they don't have the responsibility to get themselves there.
I think it's definitely an idea that's being considered, sure.
Also, in most communities, there's a gathering spot, McDonald's or whatever, where the seniors all go every single morning to eat for coffee. Pat's is closed. Most seniors aren't going to go into the store. There's no really up there. Certainly
No
not
place
going to
to
go
sit
in the
down.
nest. They can't climb up on the high tops. So that's definitely not a senior spot. So maybe you just have an hour's gathering point with a pot of coffee 2 or 3 times a week.
Good idea.
You gotta tell Roberta to open up her store again.
Yeah, whether people consider, I mean, there were seniors who went there. There definitely were, but there wasn't a lot of space for conversation or, to do a puzzle or, I think they might want to talk about a book or something like that. And the Parker dining room is great for that.
So I have one more thing. So is there room for possibly like an advisory committee for the rec department, like a way to bridge the community to the rec department? And maybe the advisory committee could put out questionnaires to kids or to parents and bring that forth?
We need, overall, I think council needs to discuss better ways to communicate with all kinds of constituent groups. I think advisory committees might be an essential part of that. I think the idea of surveying kids is a big part of that. I think the idea of reaching out to potential volunteers is another big part of that. So I think we need to have a holistic conversation about what are our goals with communication, right? Who do we want to talk to? How do we want to get feedback back to council and back to staff? So I think the idea of an advisory committee is a great one. I also think the idea of an advisory committee that is composed of stakeholders that represent different almost constituencies in town is really important. So I think that's something we need to talk about.
I know Glenburn did it, and I think there was problems and then things seem to be better, and in Glenburn at least, I don't know, I don't really know, but I think a lot of times people don't voice or don't talk to people, they just kind of grumble. And I think how is rec or anyone else supposed to know what people want unless people ask or say something, right?
Giving people an opportunity to talk, like as many opportunities to talk is really important.
Yeah.
And that's why we're here.
Yeah.
It's also great to have, an advisory, people in an advisory capacity could be, they're ambassadors, they're channels to reach the community. They are validators of the program and the program's success. So I think I think those are all, we talk about communication, the challenges of communicating with people today. To the extent that we can prioritize personal connection and how the town communicates with the townspeople. That advisory committee format can make a ton of sense. Because it's like, Megan, we had to expand the SurveyMonkey account because you got so many people to fill out the survey in the day. So we ran up against the free account had to go away, and we had to upgrade. And because people, in your case, Megan, they see you as someone who's doing a lot of work in the space as a parent, and they appreciate your energy and drive, and it makes a difference for people. So I love that idea. I love the energy people brought today.
I just wanted to say one more thing about volunteers, because I hadn't really thought about it when you asked me. We have our circulation manager is our volunteer coordinator. So that does take time. Volunteers are wonderful, and we have the group that we have, they're right there in the library. So it does, so you brought up the background check issue, but there's also the issue of scheduling and making sure people are in the right place in the right time and all that. So volunteers are great. We love them, but there's a piece where you need a representative from an employee to actually coordinate them. So that's a piece.
A little bit of training, a little bit of orientation.
Absolutely.
That goes along with that as well. So
and then when one's not quite working out or not, exactly what you're hoping for,
quite a good fit.
Right. And then that takes some finagling as well. So anyway, just that came to me and thought I should add that piece.
You send those challenging volunteers down to Public Works if you need to, Lori, anytime. Just put in a transfer request.
I will say, when you were talking about surveying the kids, now that I think about it, I think that the after-school RAD program did actually survey their kids at one point to ask, and that's when they started implementing like the arts and craft time and the free gym time. So I think, and I remember now, thinking about it, that they enjoyed being asked like what they wanted to do. Now, maybe, going to whatever wasn't chosen as an item, maybe not everything that they voiced that they wanted to do was chosen, but it did, I think, gave them a voice and made them feel like they were being heard, especially when things started being implemented.
And yeah, I also, before the pandemic, when the library was being totally inundated with middle schoolers, which is great to have a place to gather, but at one point it was just way overwhelming, the small space. Ed was still a school resource officer at the time, and he actually went through a process of interviewing and focus grouping middle schoolers, and came up with a list of things, which is where some of our kind of wacky programs have come from. So, we did it before the pandemic. I think the pandemic has just kind of brought everything to a screeching halt, and we need to kick it back in a way that works. And I will just say, we've spent a lot of time on youth today, which is great, and given ideas and ways to connect. There are a whole bunch of other things that rec really needs to focus on. One of the things we've heard from our 18 to 30 population that has connected with us is a desire for the outdoor amenities, the trails, the connecting with Jim Rose for the bike rides and really promoting.
I
those.
admittedly have no idea
Yeah.
where the trails are, except I really don't. Like, I keep hearing about the trails, and I thought, well, where are the trails?
Yeah.
So I told my kid there's trails, but I don't know where the trails are.
We're working on a map with the land trust, because that's another one of those really strong collaborations. But one of the things that we are hearing from some of the adults that are giving us feedback is that they don't want necessarily a program that you have to show up at a certain time in order to participate in. So they're looking for things like, can we do outdoor gym equipment on trails? Can we come up with unique ways to allow for outdoor exercise? So I don't want to lose that in this conversation for people who are tuning in, because although we've had a great conversation about youth and seniors, there is that population in the middle that we're hearing from in other ways. Great to hear more. But I don't want people to think that we're only focusing in one direction, because we have a whole community that needs stuff. The other, now, I'm gonna stop talking in a second. The other piece, we also have heard loud and clear that people want to bring back something like Festival Day. When Festival Day ended, we reached out to the business community, because that was initially kind of one of the driving forces. And what we heard was, we don't want you to do this in June, in September, because that we're inundated, so let's try to do it at a different time. And then Cheryl came on the council and was adamant she was gonna get Festival Day back up and going, and reached out and got a group of people that were really interested in starting Festival Day again, but didn't really have the time to do anything for it. So when we met with town council earlier this, we're not really in spring yet, so earlier this winter, we talked about a large festival, because we think that's important to the community. But we also know that our community doesn't necessarily have the driving business force that many, like Old Town, has. So Councillor Wingard, as the chair of the Community Development Committee, has agreed to host a community discussion on events, on bringing a big event back. What we know is the town can't do it all by ourselves. When we look at the successful events that other communities have, it's a group of residents, business people, civic organizations that all come together in a very planned way to make those things happen. So I didn't want to lose that from the conversation, because I know that that is part, and I think I saw it on a survey at one point. So I just want to make sure we kind of talk back a little bit.
Let me just add something about Orono Days, because I've been around for a long time. I think a lot of us and people that I've talked to in the community would really like Orono Days to be Orono, and not have other outside businesses brought in that perhaps take away from our own local businesses. Because I think a lot of our business people felt that, you know, having food trucks and things like that really affected that. But it used to be a way for people to find out who the groups and organizations were in Orono and get to know each other. But the other thing that I wanted to say is, we've talked about seniors and we've talked about kids, and you've mentioned the middle age. I think that it's important in a community to try and build some intergenerational kinds of programs, rather than stratify all of our activities. And I know that there used to be this absolutely marvelous program that my good friend Pat Bears ran, that was a gardening program. We have a fantastic community garden. And Pat had kids after school doing gardening down at the senior center. She then taught them how to cook the food that they grew. Then she matched them up with seniors. She had prompts for each of them to ask each other questions, and they had a meal together. They set the table, they had a meal together. The kids loved it, the seniors loved it. And I think it was a really successful program, and it was intergenerational. You know, I've always said, when I get old, because I'm not, I don't want to live with just old people. You know, I want to have kids around, and, you know, I want to make the second grade cupcakes while somebody shovels my walk. But I think we need to think about some intergenerational.
That sounds like a lovely program, frankly. I was just thinking that, because I think there's a lot that our youth can learn from older generations. And then again, you know, just having that company of another person or an extra hand or something. And I think it allows kids to give back, right? Like they're giving back to somebody else and providing, you know, companionship or something and connect. And with people other than mom and dad or brother and sister. And again, I think that's a really lovely sounding program. I'm sure my middle schooler would put down the video games to do something like that.
Back to the festival day, which is still the same thing, kind of what you're talking about, but I think I never experienced it, but I've heard all about it. And I think the most important part about it is the connection. I think it's a way for people to gather And for your kids to see you talking to people, know that they're safe people, that, you know, if they get stuck somewhere sometime, they can maybe talk to that person because, you know, they're a safe person, or just to kind of get to know familiar faces in the town. And to celebrate Orono and
I wasn't here for festival days, so I don't know what that entails, but I know from the small little podunk town that I grew up in, every 4th of July, we had a parade. Now, the parade might have like 7 floats in it. And it wasn't anything major, but what you did have was a cakewalk, and you had like a silent auction that the fire department did. But it was a community event. Everybody went to it, and it just allowed people to engage. And again, I don't think it was something that cost a tremendous amount of money, but it got people together. It had a fundraising component, and it allowed people to interact and get to know their neighbors. And
I think we want to restart that conversation because it seems like so many people miss it. And it also seems like there could be great new ways to do it. So stay tuned, but
Okay.
we'll call on you.
Leave your name at the.
So any other questions, comments, anything else we can take back to staff or council?
Anything online?
I'm going to mention this, but so we also have a constituent, we also have residents. It's hard when you're elected because everybody becomes a constituent. That Megan has started or is working with the University of Maine with our non-English speaking population. So we have a diverse, we have a group of people here that are learning English through Parks and Rec. It's a free program.
And the library, yeah.
And the library.
I did a lot of the background work, and then Lori so
Another
graciously
example,
hosted
but
things.
another
and
example of
It all came
collaboration.
together.
Right, and another group of people in Orono that are taking advantage of being here and being a resident as a non-English speaking, as a non-English speaker, but learning. And so, thank you for that, because that's important as well.
I work at the community gardens in the summer, and we have more foreign exchange students from the university with young families that are needy. They come, they pick up free vegetables, they turn around, they help us, they attend the cooking classes we provide, they sit down and we have our big harvest festival. So actually, we started out that community garden to help feed the seniors who don't show up. But we have all of these other great young people that come in, and we can sit there and you can chew on a raw carrot and talk about what this is called in Ghana or what this is called in South America. And you're feeding the kids and communicating. It's a wonderful program.
And I think a lot of the reason, talking with John and with Diane, a lot of the reasons some of the seniors don't use the community garden is that it's too hard for them to prep whole vegetables. And if maybe somebody was taking those vegetables and cooking it for them, they would, be able to use that a little bit better. And last year, anyway, we had this great program where the town helped us to provide goods from the thrift shop for our international students who came from the university. We had a wonderful time with them, and they have become regular customers at the thrift shop. We know when people are having babies. They've become a part of the community, and I think that I want to say I don't think we need to remember that garden is a very important part of what could be real intergenerational kinds of activities. We've talked with Diane, who is now running the garden, about helping her with some financial kinds of things, not necessarily money, but a place to put money, a 501c3 to put money, and also to maybe try and start a little bit of a food pantry that we can access through the thrift shop. People, we can say, here's canned goods, but did you know? And, we can give you frozen corn, we can give you this if you'd like it. So there's that connection too. And we'd like to we'd like to keep that going.
It's a good idea too.
Dan, did you have?
Yeah, I would just like to, I'm gonna lean on you, Jeff, Cheryl, and Sophie and the staff to think about, how as we go through the budget process and the work that we'll do after this, how do we honor the engagement that we've had today? The seniors that came out and talked with Megan and the team. And I mean, I think that's a good step forward for, how do we take what we've heard and, what kind, I don't want to commit anybody to promising anything right now. But I do think it'll be important that as we move towards, setting our priorities in a budget and the work that is going to come out of all this, that we intentionally communicate back to people to show that they were heard, and that their engagement mattered, because the synergy is important. So thank you.
Thanks. Well, I'll close by reminding everybody that's listening or that's here that we all have emails. We're easy to contact. We'd love to hear from you. And our best ideas often come from outside of these walls. So thank you for all.
Thanks, everybody.